Are you looking to make a move in 2025? Is now a good time to buy? Are the real estate websites any good to look at? Hey, my name's Travis Anderson. We're going to talk about that and more today on our channel. I'm here with Peter Lindquist. Let's get right into it.
Hey Travis, tell me what are the top reasons somebody goes looking to buy a home these days?
Yeah, it hasn't changed much since I've been selling real estate. It's normally a major life event, whether we get a job promotion, maybe a new job, just graduate college, get our first job, maybe we have a new baby on the way. So kind of those major life events are the reasons that people make moves. And I think that's probably the most common, getting married, major life events is the short answer.
I think one big question people have is, this year, is this really a good time to buy? So why would somebody buy right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. The last couple of years, we've seen a decline in demand for sure. We've had about 44,000 home sales in the Twin Cities in the last 12 months, and the previous 12 months was also 44,000 home sales. But the previous 10 years, there were 60,000 transactions that were sold. So we're we definitely have seen a decline in demand, and that should bring prices down a little. And so we're seeing that, at least a flattening of the curve over the last 12 months or 24 months. And so that's a good reason to buy. The other thing that I would say is I don't know a lot of people who would say that, they wish they hadn't purchased their home 15 years ago, right? And so 15 years from today, people will be having sort of that same conversation. And so as long as you're looking to purchase a home for the long term, not a 2 year, 3 year conversation, as long as you're looking to purchase a home for 10 or plus years, I think today is the best time to buy. And then, of course, when today passes, then tomorrow would be the best time to buy.
And hey, I'm just going to mention something from the lender's perspective too. That uh, if the market is slower, sellers tend to be a little bit more negotiable, is my understanding. And then, for buyers that need seller paid closing costs, this is the time to do it. But once the market gets hot again, over the last 3 years, that really hasn't been a possibility.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of how the negotiation works. Yeah, when the demand is lower, you get a little more leverage. I think that's true.
Okay, so what's the first step? I'm sitting at home on a weekend. I'm tired of renting. What's the first step in buying a home?
Yeah, usually a buyer is either calling me to tell me that they have this major life event and they're asking, what their next step is. So really, the first step is having a conversation with me. Some people are calling their lender like you. Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, but I encourage people to call their realtor first. The
Yeah,
reason is you've got exciting stuff to talk about. I've got loans and numbers and credit and stuff. I mean, it's just not as fun. So I like
yeah.
them to talk to you first.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, right? We get to that first conversation, we normally get sort of into the, you know, what's important to you about the move, and we get to talk about their new job or their new baby or their new wedding or whatever. So it's really exciting conversation. And then we move into, what is specifically are they looking for in their home? So that conversation can be maybe 30 minutes long or something. And then we normally schedule another follow-up meeting, or we schedule them to make a phone call to someone just like you.
So, I think for a lot of people, they hear that and they say, oh, that sounds like a good idea. But you know what? I'm just going to go look at a bunch of random open houses. So, can you tell me a little bit about kind of the facts about open houses, not only before they meet you, but once they're working with you?
Sure. Yeah, I think open houses are good. We've seen more open houses over the last couple of years because of the lower demand. So you'll see realtors host open houses, but the national average is less than 3% of all homes are held open. So if you're looking to see an open house, you're really only seeing 3% of the market. So I think that that's an important piece of the puzzle. The second thing too is there's going to be a realtor at the open house, and they're of course representing the seller, which means they have no due diligence to you as a client. They do have to treat you with respect and things like that. It's called customer relation, but there's not a client relationship there. So, you know, their due diligence is to the seller. So you don't want to accidentally stumble upon the perfect home at an open house and then say the wrong thing and then end up maybe paying more for the house. So that can happen. Um, I don't, you know, look, I'm not a huge negative Nelly about open houses. I get it. If somebody's excited about buying, they might want to look at open houses. I think it's probably better to first have a phone call with us to have a really good understanding about agency relationships. Also have a really good understanding about what they can afford. You know, if they're paying cash or something, they know, but most home buyers are obtaining a mortgage. So yeah, I think that conversation is probably more important to start.
One thing I run into a lot is people that have started their search on big national websites. And invariably, when I talk to them, one problem is they quote, I mean, those big websites quote really low payments.
Yeah.
And in the very fine print, it's huge down payments and perfect credit, and then they misquote taxes and insurance. And so by the time they come to me, it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But I know there's downsides from your side of things too. Can you tell me a little bit about what happens when a buyer's looking at a big national website?
Yeah, the insider baseball information on it is that our database of homes as realtors communicates with websites differently. And so some websites we have a direct link to. That would be, you know, your Keller Williams websites, Remax, Coldwell Banker. Our multiple listing service communicates with them directly. And so they're pretty accurate and fairly up to date as well. But the nationally branded websites, we don't directly communicate. It's more of a one-way push. And then they don't get updated information even every day. So sometimes you're looking at a website and a home's already sold. Sometimes you're looking at a website and the prices come down and it's reflecting a different price. So that's, you know, kind of the thing we look at is it just isn't always accurate information. The other thing I would say with the really big websites that you would be aware of, um, they their job is to have people click on links and then they're going to get their information and then sell their information to people like me, right? And so the more misinformation that they have, the more likely people are to click on it because they're not getting that information anywhere else because it doesn't exist. And so they're literally like tricking people into giving up their information. This happens all the time. So that's probably the best way for me to describe it. I'm not against them. Again, I do think that there's real value. A lot of them have like one click buttons to the tax records. A lot of them have one click buttons to a mortgage calculator. You know, of course, you'd have to make sure there's correct information in there, but um, it's nice to have access to all of that information.
Yeah, but I think challenging because some of it's misinformation.
Yeah.
From what I can see. So, what would you say is really kind of the best way if I'm going out to look for homes? What's the best way for me to get information? Immediate information.
Yeah, you know, if you're working with a good realtor, we provide you sort of a limited access to the multiple listing service, and so you're getting it directly from, you know, what's that phrase, the horse's mouth or whatever. So it's the same information that we have access to. You get provided that. We can get it set up where you're getting the information daily, weekly, monthly. We can set it up where you're getting the information the moment a home hits the market. So that's probably the best. It's definitely the most accurate. It also has the most marketing material. It has all of the photos and, you know, it also has those links that we're talking about that you get on some of these other websites. And so, yeah, really working with an agent, providing you direct access to our database is the best way. And I would just add too, a lot of people will tell me they're like, oh, I'm on the MLS because there's that one website that's called the MLS Online. The MLS Online is just like all of the other websites that we were talking about a second ago. Um, we've got direct access to the multiple listing service and we can provide that to you. There's no consumer facing information that's the same as what we could provide you directly.
Yeah, and getting immediate information is really important in a market where of multiple offers. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally agree. And we still have multiple offers today. Even though demand is down, listing inventory is down as well. And so we still have multiple offers. It's not a universal truth, but yeah, it happens and it's important to get accurate info.
Okay, so I've talked to you. I'm super excited. I found a couple of listings that you've sent to me. They look attractive. Tell me a little bit about what it's like. I mean, do I drive with you? Do I meet you? I mean, what happens? What happens when I go look at a home?
Yeah, like the showing process, you mean explicitly? So most of the time we're meeting at the first property. Sometimes once we're done with the one home showing, and that might take 10 to 15 minutes. It's just us. It's a private showing. So it's me and my clients. You can get through a home in 10 to 15 minutes, and then we're just on to the next home. We normally look at 4 to 8 homes per time, depending on, if it meets their needs and stuff. And so sometimes they'll hop in my car. But most of the time, again, it's people are getting married. And so it's, an engaged couple driving around their own car, and we're just sort of caravanning to the next property.
I bet that can be kind of a challenge to remember. I mean, if you're going out to look at homes and you're looking at eight, I mean, which one do you like the best? I mean, was
Yeah.
it that third one? I mean, how do you keep track
Yeah.
of it?
Yeah, one of the things that we like to ask people is real simple when you're done with the showing. It's like, what do you think? And, buyers have a really good understanding about what they like and what they don't like, but it does take time. So that very first time we're out, you're probably going to look at 4 to 6 homes, maybe 7 homes. And it's really just a primer for the next time you go out, to be honest with you. And then you can start to really compare. Well, remember that third home we looked at? And I normally what I do is I'll nickname the houses. So we might call it the green carpet house, or we might call it the garage home because maybe it's a 4-car garage or something like that, or the baseball field house if it's backed up to a baseball field. And then that way it'll trigger in their mind you know what that the rest of that home looks like. So it's just what'd you think of the baseball house, and they'll tell me. And usually, if it's one that we all know they're not going to buy, I'll always just say, okay, let's move on to the next one. I'll just tell them you're not interested. Let's move on. And the human brain's amazing. We just forget about it and we just move on to the next house. It's no big deal.
So, I know in the rest of our video series, we're going to talk about that whole process, writing a purchase agreement and earnest money and getting a loan, all of that kind of stuff. But kind of as we approach the end of this video, what else can you talk about? Are there any questions I haven't asked you that are pertinent to the discussion right now?
Yeah, in regards to just getting started, people will go through these life events. They're going to have these conversations at home and with their families and around the dinner table and whatever. It's perfectly acceptable to call me or to call you and not buy a house, right? So I think people don't necessarily have to feel that intimidation factor with us. I'm happy to explore the conversation with our clients, and if they decide not to buy, that's totally fine. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is to sort of let the guard down and just make that phone call, and let's start the conversation and see if it makes sense, if now's the right time.
Okay, that sounds great.